Well, it's more or less 10 on a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, which means that it's time to start relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons. And I'm going to continue doing painting today, which is, it's been going on for over a week now of painting rather than sanding and filing little pieces of a model airplane. And I've actually been working on minifigs that are going to be used in our Dungeons and Dragons show. So this has very much been relaxing painting for Dice and Dungeons. I painted a collection of, maybe I'll just reach over and show you just a recap. It's fun to recap rather than actually doing anything. Painted two of these guys. These are projectile weapons that shouldn't be in Dungeons and Dragons, but are in our particular world because these guys have acquired a thing called fervent tech, which is based on the use of power crystals discovered hundreds of years ago by a guy named Fervent. And they have successfully used them to power a projectile weapon. And then they have compatriots who are just spewing probably poisonous gas from this little glass container fed by this barrel back here. So we're probably going to be running into them. We've run into them before in past episodes. We kind of damaged their castle and stole some stuff. It was a heist on behalf of somebody. We don't just go around doing bad things in our show, but sometimes we run into folks who have stolen things from other people. And sorry, I'm just dealing with some paper down there. And we were asked to retrieve it, so it wasn't really a heist or a theft. It was more of a retrieval operation. So I'm almost done with this Bulette. After it was inspected by our DM, decision was made to get some dark gray wash and make it look like it's rotting. Okay, dark from the bottom up. So it'll be dark on the bottom and then kind of taper off. And then a definition line between the carapace and the body. So I'm going to do my best to do that today and see how that goes. Sometimes, like with the wash on the carapace, it comes out looking okay. And sometimes, well, I'm just not that good at it. But I'm going to do my best to do what they asked me to do. And then after that's done, I have Tashirnoon elves to paint. These guys are kind of a cult. You can't call it a religious cult, but they're a cult based on some historical figures in their history, and they're sort of after us, sort of not. I mean, we run into them. Well, let's just say that there was another recovery operation from one of their leaders, and now there's a likelihood that they're our opponent as well. So I'll be starting to paint 6 of those, and then there'll be some boss figures. Oh, excuse me. I should have gotten enough sleep last night, but everybody's really disrupted here by either allergies or a cold. So sniffling and not sleeping that well. So I'll do what I can here in terms of shading this until it's done, and then I'll start working on the elves. And I won't finish those today because there's 6 of them, and there's multiple colors that need to go on them. Their main colors are, well, I can show you an example. This is one that was done some time ago. Their armor is green with silver highlights. Okay, and usually there's a lot of like little filigree kind of detail. They're fancy dressers, we'll put it that way. Their armor usually has like highlights, silver highlights on them. Anyway, be following pretty much the same thing. I won't be using exactly the same paint. This paint it looks really good under the light, but on camera it looks almost black. So I'm going to be using a somewhat lighter green color, and then maybe giving it a wash. But first, some tea. Authentic Dice and Dungeons mug. Yeah, because everybody's so congested. We've been drinking tea instead of coffee. It just seems to work better. Okay. Yeah, well, let's give this a mixing. And I'm going to start by almost dry brushing. I don't know how dark this is going to end up looking. So I don't want to overdo it and just cover up everything and make it look black. So I'm going to start with a little bit of this wash on the brush, and then I can always add more. I do want the veining, the red veining to show through. That veining that's creeping up its body because of its infections. I can hear it. What we need to buy is another set of those little mixing ball bearing things. Those really help stir up the paint. Like if you get a can of spray paint and you shake it, you hear the rattling inside. There's a little, basically a ball bearing, a steel ball inside of it that helps break up the pigment that might have settled and help stir it. And I like many of our paints have one in them, but as we get new paints, the old one doesn't necessarily get used up, and so yeah, I need to get some more. I can remember to do that when I'm not down here. Okay, I'm gonna get some of this down here. It's very dark. I'll move it over so you can see it for everything. No, that's enough to start with. Yeah. Oh, my hand cord is not working very well this morning. Even less than usual, which is pretty less. I'll start back here. Too bad. Really dark on the bottom. Guess what I'll do is put one layer of this on, and then I'll go back and add some just more darkness, I guess. think that's what they're going for. Creeping up its legs, but it's supposed to be darker on the bottom. So after this dries, that's not good. I didn't see that before. It's a spot of green paint on one of its toenails. There too. Did I miss all of that? Sorry, I'm just seeing some flaws, serious flaws. Need to be somehow corrected. Okay, this is the first one I did. You can see it gets lighter as it dries. That's what they want, is something like it's really dark at the bottom. Put another layer on this and then see how it looks as it dries. I might have to go back and do yet even more to get, the foot rot look that they want. And I need to fix some of those toenails that are just the green from the base on them. I'm just running out of things to talk about. I talked about 100 series jet fighters. Okay, I talked about the Mickey Mouse Club. Talked about the loss of TV antenna jobs. Sure, what to chat about. I can talk about what I'm doing, but at some point, it's pretty obvious what I'm doing is I'm putting black wash on the feet of these guys because they're supposed to be rotting from the bottom up. they've been infested by some sort of fungal growth, making it, I'm sure, quite uncomfortable. That's getting dark enough now. The thing I'm supposed to do with this is highlight the border between the carapace and the rotting flesh. So it's hard to do that. I'm just going to cover up the green here. And I think that's kind of what they wanted. Yucky. Some of these, looking at it from the back underneath the thing here, which may or may not show up on camera. I don't know, but if you can see it, probably not underneath there. I don't know. You can't really see much of anything on camera, as far as I can tell. It's all very dark, much darker on my monitor than it is in real life. But, that might be my monitor. I don't know what you can see. Okay, I think I'm getting the effect that they want in terms of really dark along the bottoms of its legs. Looks pretty dark to me. I'm going to get a smaller brush and do the outline along the bottom of the carapace. This might be okay, but this does control the application of the pigment quite as well. So I'm just going to use this little brush. Doing is just going right between the carapace and down a little bit onto the body. I'm going to keep it under the carapace, because the carapace isn't infected other than these things that are growing up through it. Here. There's always a hard to reach spot. Do the tail too. Let's keep this rolling here. Welcome. I appreciate it. Thanks for the follow. And since you just popped on chat, I'm going to explain what I'm doing. I'm hopefully finishing up an infected Bulette that is going to appear in our Dungeons and Dragons show. So the stream was created because we produce our own minifigs and dungeon tiles for our show, and hand paint them. And our DM decided that it would be a fun thing to do. I don't know why, but fun thing to do to stream the production, the painting of minifigs and dungeon tiles that later appear on our show. And so that's what I'm doing. And sometimes I don't have any. And she decided that the show must go on. So when I don't have minifigs and dungeon tiles, I work on models. And I've done a Renwall cutaway Polaris launching submarine, and almost finished with an Apollo. And now I'm working on a Savoia S-21 Porco Rosso's plane. But we now have minifigs and dungeon tiles that need to go on to our show. And so I'm working on those. I did some dwarves the week before last, and then this Bulette is taken this week. Just doing some shading on here. What they wanted was rot coming up from the bottom. And so this is all dark on the bottom, and it fades up. Rotting flesh here fading up into the rest of the model here. And after I'm done with this, I've got some Tashiranoon elves. It's kind of it's a military cult, a military-based cult of elves. My character in our D&D show was actually trained by one of these. I was an orphan. That happens in D&D. I was orphaned in my village, disappeared. I don't know. Have never really been successful in finding out what happened. But a former member of this cult, somebody who was in a leadership position and left the cult, found me and then trained me. Quite familiar with their fighting techniques, and I actually have some of their armor. But we seem to have offended them. They're sort of coming after us. Anyway, I've got 3 archers and 3 dual-wielding swords wielders. And I'll be starting to paint them when I'm done with the shading here under the carapace. Painting this dark just to make the boundary a little bit clearer, but also apparently it's rotting underneath the carapace and oozing oozing down. This guy has, he's just really unhappy. It's got rot climbing up its legs, under its carapace. It's got open sores. It's got fungus spikes coming up off the top of it. I think just altogether miserable at this point. Well, it's much darker and I don't know, unpleasant looking than it was before I started putting this wash on it. Yeah, I think I captured what they being our DM and other members of our DM and Zoria on Sewell, our changeling druid, who produces the show, and Zoria is an artist, so I got all sorts of advice from them about what to try to do to make this guy look even more grotesque than it was before. It's pretty gross. So rotating it, I see some spots that I missed with dark wash. That's a recurring theme here. The recurring theme of, oh, I saw a spot I missed. This is a spot I thought I'd fixed earlier. Okay. Don't want to overdo it. Just make the whole thing look uniformly dark. I want there to be shading in it. I think this is looking okay. I think this is sort of capturing what they were looking for. How this is going to look on camera. Sometimes those things look really different than they do not on camera. Guess we'll be finding out in a couple of weeks when our party runs into this guy. No, what can be? Bullets are known to be really kind of mindless killers. I think that's probably unfair to them. They're probably, just itchy or something. But it's gigantic and it's infected, so it's in pain and even feeling more unpleasant than it does usually. So I don't know. On the other hand, the infection might have weakened it so much that it will fall easily to us, and not be, not kill us. Or what I said before is I was starting to paint this, was kind of hoping that maybe we would have a cure for its infection. That would be kind of good, right? To have a cure for its infection. And then it would join us as an allied NPC in our inevitable battle against the Ulstein Grotvelds and Tashira. That's probably wishful thinking. Okay, well, I think I got the rot going here pretty well. I think I think it's looking like they want it to. Let's put some little spots of rot around the clock here. That was stupid. Yeah, sometimes in the absence of not stupid things to say, I'll just say something dumb like that. But this is a PG rated stream, so I can make dumb puns, dad jokes, right? Because after all, I am qualified by age, if not by skill, to tell those kinds of jokes. Okay, I'm going to set this aside and say, I think this is pretty good, and then they can look at it and critique it later. There, but there's the rotting away, infested, dark, oozing, very unhappy Bulette. Yeah, I'm sure there's a place here to set it. There's a place. I found a place that's probably where I won't break it. Okay, I don't need this. This was a piece of paper when I painted the base. I used a piece of paper, high tech stuff like that to keep the paint from going other places. I'm going to throw that on the floor. I'll pick it up later. Don't do that at home. It's not, keep your workspace clean. Now you're looking at a blank paper towel onto which I'm going to put the 6 minifigs. These I primed these yesterday. So the primer's nice and dry. The pieces that had broken off that I reattached are still attached. So that's good. They had some broken blades. The swords guys had broken blades. This guy has a broken arrow as well. Yeah, so the main armor is painted green. Let me clean this brush before I forget about it. I like this brush. I don't want to mess it up. This stream used to have music, and someday it might again. Thank you for the follow, Leanne. I appreciate it. I'm about to start painting these minifigs. I haven't looked at them really closely, but they, in typical Tashiranoon fashion, are wearing some sort of heavy armor, plate armor. The main color of all of the armor is gloss green, and we don't have that, so I'm going to try some other kind of paint, another color of paint, and I hope it works. And then then there's a lot of silver embellishments. Boy, there's a lot of detail on this armor that probably should be painted. Maybe if I'm skilled enough, I could try it. So like the boots, the shirt, the helmet, all of that is painted the green, and then the pants underneath here. If I have one that was painted before, that is painted dark gray. You can see underneath the armor, and you can see the kind of silver embellishments that are on the armor. Now this green paint that I'm using, I don't know. It's really kind of viscous, almost jelly-like, and so I might end up having to put 2 coats on. So I'm going to take a couple of these guys. I hope this works. Otherwise, I'll have to go paint shopping. Actually, they did go paint shopping yesterday and brought back what was supposed to be a glossy green paint. It turned out to be a fairly, not matte, but not glossy either, kind of olive drab color. So it's really quite nice paint, but not what we were looking for. Okay, this is, in reviewing this, can I see that up here, there's a gap between the shoulder and the forearm, and right here, that has to be painted that dark gray color. Just testing to see whether or not I can actually do that after the green has been painted on top of it. Yeah, well, yep. Like I can pull that off. There's a little bit on the elbow here. I was trying to decide whether to paint the gray down on there first, but I decided not to. Covering their face, so that means their face needs, oh geez. Okay, I'm glad I'm looking at these. This is the kind of thing where the face here, okay, painting that after the helm is painted. I don't know. So a lot of that is just green. There's a lot of the little filigree here, detail that should be painted silver later. This is going to take quite a while to get all of that detail kind of highlighted. I think I can get, there's still flaws that didn't get sanded off. Okay. I think I can get the flesh color painted after the green is on. Just practicing to see that's possible. Or the alternative is to paint that on first and then paint the green up to it, which would be easier. I really want to test this green paint though, because I hadn't really much used it before, other than actually have it on a model. I've only used it like on tests patches. Needs a really, really thorough stirring because I haven't used it. It's just been sitting here for probably 8 or 9 months, maybe longer. And these green paints, especially this particular brand of paint, the green paints, the pigments and the solvents seem to separate. Okay. And then really need to test it on the model, I guess. because painting a test swatch on a piece of paper isn't the same. So you're going to see. I don't know how this is going to go right here live on screen. The alternative would be to order the paint. The local hobby shop didn't have it. The one that I've used before on these guys, it didn't have that, and it'd take about 5 days to order it online and have it shipped. Here, I might try to thin it. Well, I'm gonna grab this guy and see how this goes. I want to start painting the boot. Silver rim around the top. Detail that's going to show up on here. So I'm not painting the part that's going to be silver along the top. I just want to get the paint on here and see what happens. This is the main color. And so if this doesn't work, then there's an issue. It's acting almost like a speed paint. It isn't. It isn't a speed paint, but it's acting like it in terms of how the pigment is sort of pooling up in the low spots. Probably could use a bigger brush. That's why I keep rotating this as I'm painting it. It's so easy for me to totally miss spots. Paint the other boot. Let it dry. And take it upstairs for an expert opinion about its appearance. I squeezed out way too much paint for what I'm doing, but I haven't used this before, so the bottle is full. I do have and I do have a green speed paint. I don't know how that would look on here. It would look kind of like this is ending up looking. But I don't want to go too far with this without having an opinion about how it's looking. You know, if I've got two boots painted, I can paint over those. I can paint over those without too much to do. But if I painted a whole lot more, then I'd have a whole lot more to paint over. I think it actually looks pretty good. What I can do while this is drying is, as I was talking about it, painting the faces on under the armor. I think I'm going to try that. See it, but they've got this helm and a little bit of the face is showing underneath it, and getting the paint in there without getting it on the top, that's going to be impossible. So I'm going to paint while that's drying, because it's just a test anyway. I'm going to paint the flesh on the faces and necks of these guys used generically. I think it'll just work better, and then I can paint the green down to it. I'm going to use a really, really teeny brush, and then I have to pick the right color. Dark flesh tone. Flesh tones are never very fleshy looking. Over, not spill anything. It's really orange, right? This one looked lighter on the color swatch than the other one. This one actually ends up being browner. Supposed to work. This color is supposed to be okay, so it is the color I'm going to use. All those boots dry. And while this paint sits here and dries up and is wasted. What I'm going to be doing now, while the boots are drying, is I have to be careful not to get those too close. They have magnets in the bottoms and they repel each other. And I have done this before more than once, where I set them down next to each other like this, and they repel each other. And at least one, sometimes both, it repels it strongly, and it went flying. And blades like this snap off when they hit the ground or the workbench, or worse yet, fall on the floor. What you can't hear is this like little vibrator thing that is supposed to stir the paint rather than having to shake it by hand. This time I'm much more sparingly putting a little dot of paint here. I would use the head magnifier for this usually, but I'm just painting. I'm going to be painting over it again with the green. Need to make anyway. Anyway, I say anyway a lot. That just means that I'm giving up on something. So so there. Since I'm painting over it, I just want to make sure that I'm getting it onto the surfaces underneath, and then I'll be using the head magnifier to when I paint the helmet to make sure that the green paint doesn't cover up the flesh tone that I am applying to the face and neck of these guys. So it's probably just as well that I need the boots to dry, because I was debating about whether to do this ahead of time or not. And I had sort of decided not to, but since I've got this time now, well, the boots are drying. I changed my mind, and I think the second decision, which is to get the flesh paint all over the helmet, because I couldn't see where the tip of the brush was, because, old eyes. This is probably the right thing to do anyway. So the coincidence of testing the green paint is probably leading to a better result. So, like, I got the paint on the face, and it's a little bit on the armor, but it'll be a lot easier to paint it around that than in it. So these guys are like a military cult, and they're the followers of one of a triumvirate of elven leaders from hundreds and hundreds of years before the time period of our show. Here, and we've come to sort of become adversaries, because we've been trying. They're doing some things that are not very good. They're becoming very militaristic, and they're acquiring a level of technology that's really very dangerous. Maybe some magic that's also extremely dangerous. So they're posing a threat to the safety of the world in which we are working. Our show is in. That was sort of coherent. They're posing a threat to the civilian populations. Oh, yeah, I probably should look at what I'm doing here. It's kind of odd. But if it needs to be covered up with green paint, that'll be covered up with green paint. Okay, I'm going to put that way over there. See what kind of challenge these archers present. Some of these 3D printed moldings, we do these on a rosin printer across the hall. And the detail is really good, but And the poses are very nice. That's a very nice active pose, but it presents a significant painting challenge. Can't can't get the brush from here to there, and there's all these little nooks and crannies that make it very difficult. I know there has to be some sort of compromise between, the artistic look of these things and making it so it can actually be painted. This particular one doesn't seem to have achieved that compromise. So I need to do the best I can with the eye-hand coordination that I have remaining. But, the face is getting painted on there. Set it down. There. After I'm done painting the faces on these figures, I'm going to take a quick break, less than 10 minutes. I usually don't take a break. Now that I've reset the schedule, instead of going from 10 until 2, with a break from noon until way too long, it's supposed to be a half-hour break, and it's usually 45 minutes because something comes up and keeps me from coming back. And then after the break, the focus starts to fade. So I'm going from 10 until 1 now. And I have been, for the most part, not taking a break, but just painting right through. And then that's turned out to be more productive. But I will need to take a break today so that I can show our DM the boots and get an opinion about whether that is going to work or not. And if it does, then I'll be painting a whole lot of green stuff. And if it doesn't, well, then I'm not sure. I got that. That was particularly messy. Ugh. Good thing I'm repainting all of that over with the armor color, because, yeah, that was an example of why it was best to paint the flesh tone underneath before painting the armor, because, yeah, no matter how careful I am, it just splotches around, and it seems like just getting more splotchy around it will look okay once I put the green paint on the helmet. Right now, I can see that was splotchily done. I've been saying blotchy and splotchy a lot lately. In this case, it was unintentional. On the Bulette, it was intentional, because it's supposed to be splotchy and blotchy. These guys are not, their faces are not supposed to be splotchy and blotchy. Or I shouldn't say their faces. The helm that's covering their face is not supposed to be. Ears. Is that it, it looked like there was actually a little bit of hair sticking out under the back of the helm, but that's not the case. Glad it's not the case, because that would just be one more tiny little bitty detail that would have to be painted in. Okay. Until I look at it with the head magnifier and identify just how, where the flaws are. Right now, it looks like I got the flesh tone. I got flesh tone where I need to have flesh tone. So it's just an inconsistency in the back of the back of the helm. Just a little sort of a spot where it didn't form an even line. Okay. Wash the brush. Saying on Wednesday that I had somehow stumbled onto an episode of Bob Ross painting, and he's able to get his brushes clean by just going swish, swish, swish. You can't hear the swishing sound. You could on his show, though. His microphone did not block out the swishy sound of him swishing it in whatever solvent he was using to clean his brush. He didn't. Then he'd slap it against the side of something, and paint would splatter. Where somebody on his crew would have to clean it up later, and then he'd have a rag that he'd sometimes wipe it off on, but usually not. Okay. Yeah. So other than wasting a lot of green paint by splooching, I'm using more words like that. Too much green here. This looks like there's a way to test it, which is to stick one's finger in it and see if the paint sticks to your finger. That would be bad. I'm not going to do that. Yeah, I need to. I'm going to take that quick break and show this to those who make decisions, the decision maker level of Dice and Dungeons. And I will be back in less than 10 minutes. This shouldn't take terribly long. I just need to run up from the basement here and get their opinion, and then come back down, and hopefully their opinion will be yes, go ahead, and I'll start painting more green stuff. Be right back. Well, hi. That took longer than I expected. Our inspectors, the decision makers here, one of them wasn't available, and so I had to wait for her to become available to give an opinion about the green. And the decision is that, yes, in fact, that is green. So I'm going to be, that stuff's dried up and useless. So there, but I'll be going to be putting a lot of green on these guys now. Trying to decide. I'll try this brush. they're fairly large surfaces, but this brush is too broad, I think. Well, for the most part, it'll be okay. I mean, if I get a little green on what's going to be gray pants, that's not a problem. When I get around the helmet here, I'll switch to a smaller brush. Those I might just leave until a little bit later. Well, let me give this a good stir. So anyway, sorry that took a lot longer than I thought, but had to get the official okay. And now it's official, and it's okay. So be painting green armor, except for right around, well, not sure what I'll do around the helm. I'll deal with that when I get there. Just getting the paint may significantly stirred as much as I can here. Now I will begin the, for you, slow, for me, you know, just right. Okay, that's more stirred up than it was before. You can see the difference, how dark that was compared to this. So I think this is, yeah, this is better. I'm getting it onto surfaces that'll be painted either silver or gray. And I know I'm doing that. I want the green to be green. And then I'll put my head magnifier on and get a teeny brush out and paint the silver embellishments and the gray undergarments. I think the gloves I do here. The gloves were brown leather. Okay. So I'm not going to paint the gloves green. Paint the sleeves green. Green sleeves. Huh. Yeah, it's timely too. Yep. There, I made a standard dad joke about green sleeves. As I mentioned earlier, this is a little bit like a speed paint in that the pigment kind of pools up in spots. And so I was thinking at some point I might need to put like a wash over this to highlight some of the features, but no, it's built right into the paint somehow. I don't know why. It's an oddity about this particular green paint. That's actually performing that task. Oh, it's on camera. I looked up just to check, because usually when I'm doing this, unless I put a mark, like that, X marks the spot. That's on camera. I am with some frequency painting off camera, which misses the whole point then of people watching relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons if the painting is wandering off camera. Because I've got this highly unsophisticated, not studio, it's a workbench with a ring camera. I want to paint tops I hadn't painted before because they're going to be painted silver. But then I'm looking at it and I'm going, I better paint them green so I don't miss spots. It should be green that end up not being green. So I move on to the next one and then come back. I don't know. This paint is a little weird. Not sure if it blends in with itself very well. So what I'm concerned about is if I don't paint the helm while the rest of the paint is still wet, that I'll end up with like a line, a demarcation line. I am going to put on my head magnifier and paint the area around the flesh using a small brush. I don't know if this is the best way to do it or not, but it's what I'm going to do here this time. Great. What's happening here? It's, can't get the brush there from here. Little bitty stripe that I need to have a nice smooth line on. Okay. Trouble focusing here. Yes, I have gone silent because I do that when I do this kind of detailed work because it's, like I said, I can't talk and paint at the same time when I'm doing this. Some people can, but and maybe I used to be able to when I was younger, but no, I can't. Yeah, and then you can see the top of my head. So I try to get the green paint on the surfaces that need to be green. here in the ear. This is raised ridge all around the outside of the helmet. And it's really tempting to think that that should be painted silver, but that would just be really difficult. And besides, I think it would be distracting if they were wearing a helmet and there was silver all around their eyes. It would catch the light and reflect back on their eyes, and that wouldn't be good. That it's a raised thing is good for painting, because then I can paint up to it but not over it. And that's a good thing. As this becomes more green, you begin to see how the armor, wow, there's so much filigree on the armor. And this is highlighting it pretty nicely. Because like I said, it's almost speed painty in its effect. But no, I'm going to have to decide how much of that is going to be silvered. It's a lot of it. Fancy. That's another one of those things where I'm going to have to get an opinion from the powers that be about how much of that is painted silver and how much of it is just left green. Okay, that was a thing. Put this brush back and finish the helm. That little brush is very, very slow at painting larger surfaces, geez, like the top of the helmet. I want it to be a little bit more uniform than I can get. It's not bad. Maybe I should just keep these on. Oh, yeah. Oh, let me paint the other one. Clean this other brush first. I don't want it to just sit in the water with its bristles bent. Maybe, yeah, I'm going to do the face and the helm first with a little bitty brush. Get that out of the way. I should have done that to begin with. Do the hard part first, right? Right, 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 right. Mutter, mutter. Oh my. I did bend it in wash water. I painted the flesh part first. Painting that underneath this green would have been totally impossible. To be most careful about bringing the paintbrush up to the work surface. That's my major source of oops, is bringing the brush up to the work surface and smashing it into a place that's supposed to be a different color. Yeah, I do that. That's my, when I do that, that's definitely an oops, and that's the most common oops that happens on this painting stream. Around and there's this spot of color that shouldn't be there. I found that on the Bulette. There were just a couple of spots of the green that I used for the base that had gotten onto the rest of it. I don't know. You know, it's just a spot. It was obviously one of those things where the brush hit the surface where it shouldn't have hit. Sometimes those are easy to fix, sometimes not so much. It's not just where on the surface it is, it's whether it's multiply layered or not. If it's been washed, it makes it harder to fix. Sure how far along I'm going to get today. This goes pretty quickly, except for this area here. You need to use the little brush. Tiny little spots just take as much time as like the whole rest of it together. Okay, that's adequate. And I can get the larger brush out and paint the rest. This brush is going to need... Oh, hi, Gifted Gabby. I'm going okay. I have finished the Bulette, which is over to the side. This is going to need a isopropyl wash. And I am now painting Tashira warriors. They have green armor. So I'm putting a lot of green paint on things. I don't need these now. After the green dries, I've got some gray to do, and then some silver. There's a lot of embellishment on the armor, and some of it, I don't think all of it, but some of it is going to be painted silver because the Tashira colors are green and silver. This is interesting. I said that this paint is acting like speed paint. I mean, in some ways it is. It's the pigment doesn't flow on evenly, and it kind of builds up in the low spots of the detail of the armor. So it looks okay. I think it looks pretty good that way, but it was an unanticipated effect of this paint because it's just supposed to be paint. And it keeps some gloss, which is good because their armor is supposed to be glossy. So I hope everybody else is doing okay today. We've been hit with I don't know, colds or allergies or what, but some major weather fronts have been coming through kind of like one after the other here. Big swings in air pressure and temperature, precipitation or not, and and it's everybody's kind of sneezing and coughing. To rotate this is the kind of figure that I frequently just totally miss a spot, and then I'm painting like silver detail later, or maybe the gray undergarment that it's wearing under its armor, like on its pants and elbows. And then and then I find a spot like the inside of a leg or something that is totally missed. I'm not sure how that happens, but it does. Like under here, okay, like under the arm there. That would be the kind of spot that I would find later and go, no, I need to practically start over with it. So I'm not being very careful about getting paint on in a few spots that are going to be painted gray later. I want to make sure the green goes all the way down to the surface, and then the gray will cover it. The tops of the boots are going to probably have like a silver ring around it. But the screen is turning out okay. Hadn't used it before. And it has some interesting features. It's the right color, though. It's a nice bright green. Like I said, it has a little gloss to it, which we want on the armor. We want the armor to be a little glossy. And it seems to be covering okay. When I first tested it as a test patch, it was almost unusable. But after significant additional mixing, it seems to be working all right. The boots are all the way down to the ground. Sometimes, just like the bottoms of the boots don't get painted this color, and then paint up to them and there's this white streak. And I'm just going to look around and make sure I didn't completely miss something. He's off and pop on 2 more. I got, is it noon? I've got a whole hour yet. Wow. I'm going to just say this day is moving along very slowly. So these guys are Tashiranoon. They are a military cult, mainly elves. It's almost completely elvish. Not Elvis. They're not nightclub singers, but they're elvish, and they've been around for hundreds of years as followers of some ancient elvish leaders. Very different personalities. They fell out with each other, which was kind of unfortunate at the time. I'm going to do the helms again around their faces and necks with a little brush. That's the really slow, annoying part. And in our Dungeons and Dragons show, I can't say that we've made exactly enemies of them, but we're in conflict. Give away too much because you should watch the show to get the backstory. But my character was trained by a former member of this cult. He apparently was in a leadership position and then left the cult for some reason and became my mentor and teacher. And because he left the cult, he was kind of like an enemy of the cult. I mean, cults don't like to lose members. So Van Furan, who was my teacher, used to be a leader in this cult and left it. We don't know why. The story arc hasn't told us why yet. But he did. And now my character is not well liked because I was taught by this person who left the cult. I guess they'd consider him to be like a traitor almost, right? Anyway, when we run into them, it's usually an unfriendly encounter. So I'm probably I'm probably painting minifigs of some people we're going to have to do battle with. Quiver. The quiver should probably be painted something else other than the screen. I don't know. I'm going to paint it. I'm quite sure what I'm going to do. If it's going to be painted something other than the green, I'm not sure what. Sure what to do about it. To this green and then maybe a different color later. I have to decide soon though, because I'll be painting that area fairly soon. This one was not designed from a painter's perspective. Just spots here that are really hard to reach. I'm going to complain about that. That was a rant I did once. Design engineers versus manufacturing engineers. It became an issue with the submarine model. Became an issue with the submarine model because the design engineers designed some things that pretty clearly could not actually be made. And then there were some flaws in the model that became really obvious in the, in plastic of the model. It became pretty obvious and could not be corrected. Okay, that'll do. Clean this off so I don't mangle the bristles again. But in this particular case, this pose is really great, firing the arrow like that right across its face, but that leaves all these spaces behind it, nooks and crannies that are really just very difficult to paint. Switching to a larger brush because there's larger surface areas. I'm not going to paint the quiver. Shouldn't be there. Sorry, there's little bits of plastic there from the molding process, little support strings that just should not be there right at the base of the quiver. And hope I can get them off without breaking it. Or they'll just have to be there. No, they're not snapping off. I think they're in a fairly invisible place. And maybe they can be made to look like a support thing. I don't know. I said I wouldn't paint the quiver green, and then I started painting it green. I'm just going to paint it green and then deal with it if we painted a different color later. It'll be painted a different color later. It's dry. If this is like all the other acrylics, it should take a color on top of it without a problem. And the plan is to not have a problem. getting gummy, and the paint is too. Stir it up again and put it in a clean one. I have this new palette that I am now messing up, making a mess of it. The other one lasted, I think, like 6 months before it became totally unusable. And it did. It became just so much. I couldn't clean it anymore. This is an example of my cheapness. My low budgetness is in that these are sold by the dozen for like a few bucks. And I think they're advertised as for your elementary school painting projects. Every student gets one. And then when the painting project is done, they just throw them away because they're all gucked up with all sorts of paint. Interesting. Just the way the armor is put together. Anyway, yeah. So this is a how to do it on the cheap kind of show. And one way you do it on the cheap is you buy these little plastic pellets by the dozen and then wash them off and scrape the paint off and keep reusing them, even though they were sort of designed for a single use. Probably have saved, I don't know, like $5 or $6 that way. It's enough to buy one bottle of paint. You saved enough to buy a bottle of paint. And just put it that way. Anyway, paint is really expensive nowadays. It's not just model paint. Paint. We painted a bunch of walls last year, and I was surprised at the per gallon price of good quality wall paint. But then again, I'm old enough to remember when, it was, as a kid, it was really rare to have paper money. And quarters and a dime and some nickels. Pennies actually bought stuff. Cents. I don't know why they call them pennies. Because they're not. They're 1 cent coins. But I know it's mostly green. There's going to be some parts that are gray where the undergarment is showing through. And this one, not very much. Oh, yeah, rotate it because there's spots that are missed. And then there's a lot of raised detail on the armor, and some of it is going to be painted silver. There's a lot of detail in this model. The quiver has a lot of detail on it too. I don't know if it shows on camera. I'll have to decide how to embellish that. So that I'm not seriously missing any spots. With the helmet looking splotchy. See if I can make that a little more even. Okay. That one sit. And then, oh yeah. Get the little bitty brush out again. Little bitty brush. And paint little bitty detail around a little bitty face. Guys with the swords are a little easier to paint because they don't have arms in front of their faces. But then again, it's less easy in that it's more visible. And so a mess up will be obviously seen. I don't know when these guys are going to show up on the show. Um, Obviously, sometime after I'm done painting them because they can't show up on the show until they're done. Oh, I know. If I never get them painted or if I take a really long time, maybe we won't run into them. Do you think I can manipulate the show by just procrastination? Sorry. We cannot battle the Tashiranu. Their minifigs are not completed. They probably won't be completed now for months. Look at the detail that needs to be painted. It takes a very long time to do it carefully. So maybe I can save our party, especially my character, which is the fighter, which is the one who gets to be beat up mostly. Maybe I can save us, especially me, by just not finishing the painting. That's almost tempting. It's almost tempting to really annoy our DM by not getting the minifig models done in the time frame that she wants them. Civility. It's a good word. Guess what that means is that I'm going to chew on hay, swallow it, regurgitate it, and eat it again. Isn't that what ruminants do? Cows. Is that camels? Maybe, I'm not sure. Something I used to know that I don't know anymore. Which animals belong to the ruminants? What does that mean about thinking about it? I think what it means is that think about it and then regurgitate your thoughts and think about it again. I think that's how it's applied. Kind of makes sense like that. Painted the archers first because they're the harder ones. Whoa, okay. I almost broke off the dagger. I have this tendency of using my little finger as kind of a brace as I'm painting. To brace my hand. And sometimes it pushes up against the thing. Pushes up against the thing. Sometimes it just I get paint on my little finger. And then when I touch the surface again, I spread it around and that makes a mess. sometimes, like I almost did there, I can actually break a piece. But I still need to do this because that's how I keep my hands steady. Okay, now I can wash this and then use the bigger brush and go at it with the green paint. Probably would have been better with the light on. I'm fading more quickly than usual today. Usually I don't start fading until 12:30. Seem to be fading before 12. It's after 12 now, but the fading had started a while ago. It's more complete fading at the moment. The hardest part to paint is turning out to be the tops of these little helmets. Trying to get the paint even. There's the rest of it has a lot of surface texture on it. And so the unevenness actually contributes to the look of it. But the top of the helmet, no, not so much. Mm. It's a matter of getting the paint on all the surfaces that need to be green, and then shading it and making sure I didn't miss any spots. Yeah, so maybe I can complain about. I can't really complain too much because the design, our DM designed these guys, took kind of a generic model and then modified them to be to Shiranun. And she does that. She spends a lot of time working on the design of these things before the rosin printer starts doing its job. So like the helms, part of the armor, the weapons, all had custom design done on them so that they looked to Shiranuni. Well, we should call them that. Oh, that would have in the game. Okay, say, hey, it's the Shiranuni. Then they'll get upset, and maybe if they were angry, they would. Sometimes if if a fighter becomes angry, they lose their focus and start flailing around and become more vulnerable. And if these guys were to be anything to make them more vulnerable, it would be a good thing. I'm going to keep that in mind. That would be the kind of thing our bard would say. Hey, you! It's a tabaxi and speaks with kind of that quasi fake Eastern European Russian accent. I'm not sure why, but that's how the tabaxis, that's how our tabaxi bard talks. Hey, you! You're a Tashura Nooney. As I cast, what is it? Insult spell that is usually fairly effective. But I can't think of it right now. I don't know why I can't. My brain can't think of what the name of the spell is. Sort of insult, some sort of taunt. Ugh, just a total blank. When I'm done, I should probably eat a little lunch and then fall asleep and take a nap and try to refocus. I think I have anything I have to much do after this. I did some brain numbing work on some spreadsheets yesterday. Spent a couple hours doing that. Maybe I'm having an after effect of doing that. Spend 2 hours working on spreadsheets trying to make sure that everything is accurate. Probably have nightmares about it all night, right? That's probably what happened. I can't remember them, but I wouldn't doubt that was the case. No doubt. Okay. Clean this. I've got enough time. Whether that's a good thing or not, good for getting the painting done. Not so good for my back right now, but I have enough time to get the base coat on the other two. These are archers. These are harder, especially around the head. And like this one, I will paint the quiver green and then make a decision later, whether to overpaint it with a different color or not. I'm into that. Almost broke the bottom of one of those bows off. That would have been good. Try these again. As I paint around the face and the neck of the helm. It's kind of surprising, and in this case, a little bit dismaying, how much difference just a dot of paint here or there can make, even at a distance. Dismaying because that means that I have to be really careful with my dots of paint. It just makes the job harder, right? Right. Reaching down underneath the here. It's the kind of thing where it's like, I can get it from, I can't reach it. And then I turn it around and it's, oh yeah, all you needed to do is rotate it 90 degrees and it would have been so much easier. That has happened. It's kind of a feature of my painting. So if anybody is watching this as kind of a, am I going to learn something new? The one thing you should learn that's new is keep rotating your model as you're painting it. Okay, so that you, not only that you don't miss spots, but also that you can find the best angle to reach a hard to reach spot with your brush. You know, it just takes messing around. It's the Shiranoon guys, you know, one of their leaders sort of started coming after me because my teacher was his apparently his predecessor as a leader of the Tashiranoon and left the Tashiranoon, just left them. So might be considered to be a traitor. And then since I was taught by that person, I was unwelcome, I guess. Guess that's the best way to put it. Not considered a friend. Just hard to reach. Sorry for going quiet again. That's what happens when I'm trying to get paint into spots that are really just kind of difficult. Yeah, I guess I'll finish this. That was almost bad. I knocked into that. The one that was standing on the stand, if I had knocked that over, odds are very high that I would have broken the bow somehow. And then that would have, if nothing else, seriously delayed things and caused me to go, oh no, really? How could that happen? The top of the helmet. It's time for a sigh. So I've been asked, why do you sigh like that? And my answer is, I don't know. Just feels better sometimes to sigh. Does it bother you? No, but I wonder if something's wrong. Well, no, nothing's wrong. It just feels better to sigh. And then I make up some sort of story about it. What it is it's a exhalation of excess carbon dioxide or something, just some sort of nonsense about sighing that satisfies the person who's concerned about why did you sigh. So that was a sigh, just because sometimes maybe it is an exhalation of excess carbon dioxide or something. I don't know, but it did feel better. These guys don't look like much right now, because they're just sort of green. They look like poorly painted rangers, kind of, I guess. But after I paint some of the detail on them, especially the silver embellishment on the armor, which will take a while, okay, but that will really make them look quite different. Looking different in a good way. Leave these on right now. Got them over there on the paint, on the brush cleaning paper towels, so that I can like knock them down or bump them or something later. But I went out of focus there. After I took those off, they were used to focusing someplace, and now they're not focusing there. So this looks, it's nice and shiny, and it has some variation in color because the paint behaves that way. But they have a lot of the embellishment on the armor is supposed to be painted silver. And so I'll be spending a fairly long time. I'll be spending a good deal of time, quite a lot of time, sometime, deciding which of all of the embellishments, because there are just so many of them, are actually going to be painted silver. And some would just be left like a lighter shade of green, because this paint is kind of doing that. It's kind of highlighting some of the raised surfaces. See, longer, slower brush strokes instead of just dabbing the paint on, but that's what I'm doing. So like the knees underneath here, there's parts that are going to be painted gray because there's like an undergarment. But a lot of what you can see is as raised surfaces on here, almost like filigrees. I'm going to paint, those will be painted silver. So this character will start looking really fancy. Instead of like a toy soldier, which is kind of what it looks like now. That's the intent anyway. We'll see if the execution of reality turns out to be similar to the intent. Okay, just one more face to paint. I go silent one more time as I attempt to paint the helmet and not the flesh beneath it. What I can do is try to do my best to do that. This and the the DM and Zoria demand a lot of attention to detail, but then they go on screen, okay, and they're under studio lighting. The camera's at kind of a distance because the camera wants to show the entire battlefield and not just individual figures on it. And so when you watch the show, you're probably not going to see the result of all of the work that I'm doing here. It'll just be invisible. I should feel kind of sad and put out by that. Think, why am I doing all of this? Because when it's on camera, you won't see it. That's why movie props are not usually very well done. That's just me whining. I haven't had a good wine yet today. Certainly complain about the weather. I was listening to the Weather Channel yesterday, and there was a guy reporting from Chicago. Chicago just had their first snowfall yesterday morning. They got actually quite a bit. I think they said like 3 inches had fallen. It didn't last that long. I mean, it accumulated, but it didn't stay accumulated for very long because the temperature warmed up and it started to rain. So, like on these weather shows, they always make somebody stand out in the weather. They can't just show like a picture of it. Oh, look, there's snow. We can see that. No, they make somebody stand out in it. And then the camera person, who gets no credit, has to stand there too. Except instead of just standing there and chatting, they have to hold the camera up and hold it steady despite the wind and the rain and everything. So anyway, they were talking about the first snow, and the reaction was a lot of the people were kind of, it's winter. Yay, our first snow. Isn't that cool? There were some people who didn't like the snow, but there was, for the most part, it was welcomed. And then later in the day, the wind picked up and it started to rain, and the same guy was standing out there. And he was just saying, I would much rather be in the cold and the snow, because the worst weather is cold, windy rain. The person who was in the studio, who wasn't in the cold, windy rain, but was in a nice, warm studio somewhere else, and chimed in and said, yes, I agree. That the worst weather to be out in anyway, is cold, windy rain. So why am I telling this story? I'm telling this story for 2 reasons. One, to fill the time, as I am trying to paint around the face here of this Tashira archer. Okay. And I succeeded in that. I filled it. I filled the time. The other is that that's the weather we've had here. Cold, windy rain. So the people on the Weather Channel were saying that that's the worst weather. It must be true, but that's the weather we've had just the last few days. Cold, windy rain, and it really is this hard to get rid of the chill from that. Even though it's not that cold, it's maybe like 37 degrees or something, maybe even 40. It might be that warm. It just chills. It just cuts in, no matter how bundled up one is. There, that was my complaint about the weather. Consider the weather complained about. A larger brush and finish, making this person look like a little old-fashioned army guy. Need to order another one of these brushes. Definitely. I said that before, but if I say it to myself enough times, I might actually do something about it. Like remember it and remember to do it after I'm done with the painting. So that was the story of the Weather Channel people talking about what is bad weather and reaching a consensus that bad weather is the same as the weather that we've just been having here for the last 3 or 4 days, which is why people are coughing and sneezing and feeling shivery, even if it's not like nearly as cold as it's going to be later this winter. When in Fahrenheit degrees we start getting down to like 0 Celsius degrees, that's just 32 Fahrenheit. That's a lot of degrees yet, right? But in Fahrenheit, those degrees disappear and become like 0, which is way minus numbers than Celsius. That was the scientific way of saying that it gets pretty cold. But that cold doesn't, I don't know, maybe everybody just gets, by the time it gets that cold, people are more used to it. I don't know. I'll just say that the cold, windy, wet, rainy weather that we've had the last few days has just been unpleasant. And yeah, too much paint. So other than complaining about the weather, what have I got to talk about for the next 10 minutes or so? I don't know. I should fill the time somehow. I could go back to ranting about the Mickey Mouse Club. I never really finished it. I keep getting, off track, just kind of wandering off about, doing a James Joyce thing, the stream of consciousness kind of effect that he did in his writing. That was considered to be brilliant, but it might have just been unable to hold a thought, you know. But okay, well, since James Joyce is considered to be brilliant, and I'm not, I won't say anything about that. But excuse me, yeah. Getting to the nose dripping time of the hanging out here in the basement. Okay, I hope I got it covered well enough. I'll find out when I start doing the silver. There's always the likelihood I'll have to do some green touching up. Probably after I put the silver on, the silver will splash onto where the green is supposed to be anyway, because I just, can't stay within the lines well enough. And then I'll have to do little points of touch up, dots of paint going back and forth between the silver and the green. I'm going to take these guys off the stands for safety reasons, because if the stand falls over, then something will break. And like I said before, they have magnets in them that repel each other. So I can't let them be next to each other. Them back to center stage here. And they're looking pretty decent. Just a lot of these lines on the armor will be silvered, and then that will look fancy. And the weapons need to be painted. Things like the arrow tops and stuff like that. I have to decide what colors those are going to be. I'm going to get the isopropyl alcohol out and clean these brushes a little more thoroughly. That's about ready to be changed. Got a lot of green in it. That green is not from this green. That green is from painting the base of the Bulette. So if I can bring the Bulette out and show it to everybody without dropping it on these guys and breaking something, I will do that. So, yeah, this is how Bob Ross cleans his brushes. Swishes some hard like that in some sort of solvent. I guess that works. If it works for him, and he had a painting show that actually made money and had a fan base and everything. So maybe if I copy some of the things he does like this, okay, then I'll get a bigger fan base and like more followers, like the two folks who followed today. Thank you. Whereas he's off camera, he swished his brushes. You could hear it swish, but you can't because this microphone cancels out all the noises except for a voice. So you can't hear the furnace running. You can't hear the dogs barking. You can't, if I drop something, you can't hear it fall. When I'm stirring the paint, you can't hear the vibrator thing. But on his show, you could hear it swishing, and then he would like pound the brush against something, I guess, to get the solvent out of it, and then maybe wipe it on a rag, or I don't know. That's always off camera, so it's magical and mysterious. But here you got to watch me do that and do this so there. Okay. So between now and Monday, I'll be getting opinions about different color combinations for things like the arrow feathers that stick out of the quiver. Whether the quivers should be painted a different color than the green. Probably yes, just so that they stand out somehow. And then some conversation about can't tell. It looks like a spot that got missed. And then, because there's going to be these things, I want to find spots that were missed. As I'm wrapping up here, I'm going to look like that, the back of the leg, totally missed. Amazing. So I'm going to just pick each of these up and rotate them a little bit and go, oh, I can't believe it. Oh, really? Geez. Stuff. I'm going to say things like that as I find significant flaws in this paint base coat, which I very carefully applied and rotated and looked at it from every angle and didn't expect this kind of thing to happen. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. Like there's spots here. So over the weekend, what we'll be doing is checking in with the senior members, not in age, but in terms of status of Dyson Dungeons, to ask about things like what should the quiver be, how should the quivers be painted, how much of this embellishment do we really want to be silver, because there's so much of it, and how much we should just let kind of show, because it's the paint gave some variation in color, which is kind of nice. So those important kinds of things will be done, and then on Monday, I will do my best to implement the directives that were given to me by my bosses, the D&D bosses. It's trying to even up the tops of the helms there. Every once in a while, there's just a spot, you know. And what I would attribute that to is that when the paint dries, it shrinks and sometimes pulls away from itself. And it pulls away from itself and creates little dots of that show the undercoat, the primer underneath. And then as I start painting the silver embellishments on the armor, I'll probably find more spots that just didn't get any paint on them, or where the paint had pulled away, like here. And there's a little spot that isn't adequately painted. There'll probably be more of that, and I'll be annoyed, and then I'll just get out the little brush and take a tiny little dot of paint, just the tip of the brush, and dot it, dink, and I'll make a noise like that. Why not? Maybe I'll go doink or dink or beep. Some sort of little noise to accompany the application of a tiny dot of paint. For some reason, things like that need a sound effect. It's like the lights on Star Trek, right? When was the last time you encountered a light that when you turned it on or off made a noise, especially turning it on? And then so sometime in the far distant future, they've got noisy lights. And loud doors too. But the light stuff always annoyed me. It's like, why do the lights make noise when they come on? Or in a commercial, right? There's a commercial where a stadium is being lit up, and a bank of lights goes on, and it goes bong. There's this huge clunky noise. If you're at a stadium and the lights go on, they don't make a noise like that. They just come on. But apparently it's, you have to make a clunky noise when you turn on a bank of lights on a commercial or a movie or something. Lights just aren't noisy. So I had to, that was a complaint. I got a rant in today, a new one, not about the Mickey Mouse Club, but about sound effects when lights turn on. Okay, well, these guys are green. They look like little army men or army people. That kids used to play with when I was a kid. I don't know if they still do or not. They made a movie about them once, but I think that was sometime. They showed up, Toy Story? Anyway, that's what they kind of look like, but they'll look different once the silver embellishments are put on the armor and the weapons are painted. But I'll be getting advice about those colors over the weekend, and then next week I'll start applying them. So the thing I did do today is I finished the Bulette. What they wanted done was what is done here, which is the darkening of the lower parts of the legs and the feet to make it look like it's rotting and that the rot is climbing up. And a little bit of application of black wash along the bottom of the carapace, just to highlight the distinction a little bit. So now it's got rotting legs, as well as open sores that are oozing, and fungus spikes and mushrooms growing out of its carapace, and all veiny stuff all over the place. This is an altogether unhappy Bulette. It's just, I don't know, just bad things are happening to it down here, and the mossy, fungally, whatever is happening to it is not good. It was really an unpleasant experience for this Bulette. And if you watch our Dungeons and Dragons show, you will almost certainly see this Bulette show up and confront our group. And what happens, I don't know. It'll either be enraged, or it'll be weakened, or it'll be looking for mercy and help. It's really hard. It's hard to predict exactly how our DM is going to play this out. But right now, it doesn't look like something. Doesn't look like something we really want to meet. It's built to scale, so you can see what a Bulette looks like compared to fairly large elves. It's not a trivial little monster. So there. Yeah, I think it came out okay. I like the way the carapace came out with the brown wash on the khaki color. It's kind of mottled. It looks good. I guess the rotting legs look okay. It makes it look more interesting than it did before I did that. The oozing sores came out, I think, pretty well. I think that looks pretty good. The glossy red paint would work pretty well on that. And then the base looks kind of soupy. That came out okay too. It's just kind of a lot of green wash. A white, it was dirt. That's good. It looks kind of swampy and murky and mucky. So I think I did a pretty good job on this, I have to say. Better than I thought I was going to when I started. I'm congratulating myself, trying to make myself feel like I accomplished something here. So thanks for watching. And I'll be back on Monday at about 10 o'clock and they'll be continuing to work on these Tashira Noon archers and fighters. Be doing those, like the undergarment thing. This will be a dark gray. I'll probably put that on. And then I'll be starting to work on the silver embellishments. There's a lot of those, the silver embellishments on the armor. And that will be, I don't know, tiny little brush, dabbing tiny little bits of silvery paint. And I hope it works out. And then the silvery paint will get on the green paint. And I'll have to get the green paint out and touch up the silver, so that it doesn't look splotchy, so that it looks like it's nicely, beautifully in silver inlaid armor. Thanks everybody for joining in today. Thanks for the new follows. That's really much appreciated. More follows, the better. You can catch this also on YouTube and become a subscriber. And if you really want to support Dice and Dungeons, watch our Dungeons and Dragons show, which streams with a live chat on Twitch Sundays at 2. And if you can't do that, catch it on YouTube or as a podcast. And it works either way. And I'll be back on Monday. I'll stretch my back. In the meantime, thanks everybody. Take care.